Center for Spiritual Living, Delaware. That sounded beautiful, Deb. Thank you. And thank you for your shucking and diving and adjusting for us this morning. That was awesome. The theme for September 2021 is reaching higher. And the topic for today is when the road gets rocky. Ernest Holmes reminds us that when the road gets rocky, to remember our mind must remain firm in the conviction that our life is a part of God and that the Spirit is incarnate in us. Ernest also reminds us of our part in creation. Infinity fills all molds and always flows into new and larger molds. Within each of us is the possibility of unlimited experiences, and it is our privilege to give birth to them. With grateful, big open hearts, let us speak this affirmation together. With awareness of our part in giving birth to greater possibilities. Every step of the way is an extension of my faith. The further I go, the higher I rise. And now sending this back to our beautiful, radiant, beneficial presence, Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was beautiful. So I'd like to begin with this. A priest, a rabbit, and a minister walked into a bar. The bartender looked at the rabbit and said, "Why are you here?" And the rabbit stopped and thought for a moment and said, I guess I'm here because of autocorrect. So why are you here? Why are we here? I guarantee you it's not because of autocorrect.
That was almost a dad joke.
Yeah, that was kind of a dad joke for sure. So I posed this question, why are we here, several years ago to our leadership. We gathered together as what we call the Spark leadership of our community. And we really delved into that and as a collective, and we collaborated. And that's how we came up with that beautiful intention statement that we say at the beginning of our service. And the piece of that intention statement that states why we are here is this: we are here to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth. And that's what we came up with that time. And to that, we added the Centers for Spiritual Living intention, which is to a world that works for all. So to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth, a world that works for all. We say it every Sunday, and I would really love if we could just be very mindful as we say it, because we're using the power of creation itself in the process. So last Sunday, Dr. Judy Morley, after service, worked with our leaders. And this is our second meeting with her. And this time she posed that same question. Why are we here? Why does Center for Spiritual Living Delaware exist? And so with modern technology and the ability to input all of our, what came through all of us in terms of one word qualities, what came up as something that we held in common was that we are here to be the presence of love, joy, and inspiration. I love that. Love, joy, and inspiration. So why are you here? Why are you here today? Why are you here on the planet? And if you are hearing the same thing or similar things, Are you here to be inspired? Are you here to be an inspiration? Are you here to give and receive this beautiful nature that is yours and ours, love and joy? If we're here to give and receive and to share in these qualities, then we have a common purpose. And that's really important, common purpose as a collective. And at the same time, it's really important for each of us to tune into our own common purpose. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why do I exist in this time-space reality? Why do I exist as pure spirit at all? So those are really big questions, existential questions for us to take into our meditation. And yet, when we join this human family and this time-space reality, well, let's get real. It can be very rocky. So, our topic is when things get rocky. Well, rockiness, it seems, is part of the path. Those rocky obstacles, challenges that are taking place. And, I understand people are really hurting right now on our planet. You may be one of them. There's coronavirus and the loss and things that have taken place with that. There are all of the climactic things that are taking place, the floods, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, the fires. I could go on. And the issues with pollution. And there's the human crisis that's taking place right now that my sister and I were talking about yesterday, where refugees are fleeing their homes and seeking a better life for themselves in other countries. So there's all of this stuff that's going on a grander scale for the collective of not only humanity, but all the plants and animals on this planet. And there are also our own personal rocky road experiences. So with all of this in mind, what I am so grateful for is that we offer a spiritual teaching that liberates us, that helps us move through the rocky road experiences of life with more grace and more ease and a greater awareness of the amazing creative power that we have within us to experience the whole thing differently and to be a part of transforming it. So it begins by reaching higher in consciousness, in our thoughts, for a higher perspective. It's about owning that we are pure spirit, made in the likeness and image of the Creator itself, God. That we wield amazing creative power. Our words, our thoughts, where we place our attention, our ideas, all that stuff of the so-called mental realm, our thought world, has amazing power. Owning that is so important if we are to reach higher and to be that difference in our own lives and on our planet. So my question to you is, do you have faith in this power within yourself that is the very power of God operating through you? For that faith and trust in that power is a prerequisite for stepping into a higher order of being. So that means it's time to give up the complaining. If thought is creative, complaining is creating what we don't want, the things that we're complaining about. It is time instead to move in the direction of higher thought. We have a spiritual teaching that supports that. We have spiritual practices a form of affirmative prayer and meditation that support that moving to a higher level, level of being, higher order of being. And I love that image that we showed when Jenny was doing the readings of someone climbing the side of a mountain. And I think about our teaching as the handholds and the footholds that help us to transcend the rocky times and get to higher ground. So we have a broader perspective of what's going on. We can see what's going on from a spiritual perspective, a higher perspective that allows us then to be a beneficial presence on this planet. So I'm going to be starting with a question. What if the reason you are here is to not only receive love, joy, and inspiration, wisdom, whatever it is that you choose to receive? What if you are also here to share that? I like to live in those what if questions rather than just make them a statement. What if that is why you're here? To more fully demonstrate that spiritual truth of being this amazing spiritual being with this amazing creative power. What if you are here to demonstrate that, to experience that, to express that, to share that, to help, to be one of the liberators, one who brings liberation to other humans, brings this beautiful teaching which liberates. So let's get to work today then. Oops, I have the wrong side. Here we go. So when the road gets rocky, well, let's start with a story first. On our recent trip to Canada, Dan and I decided to take this walk, this hike that we read about and we heard about from other people, to a glacial lake at the foot of a glacier, at the foot of this grand mountain that was called Mount Edith Cavell near Jasper National Park. And as we hiked, the road was the path was very smooth. It was paved actually at the very beginning. There were a lot of people on it, and so we headed up, and then we headed down a path that maybe wasn't quite as smooth, but it was still well traveled. We got to the foot of the glacier, and it, of course, the glacier from up above was gorgeous, and this beautiful turquoise pool of water. We got to the edge of it, and then we noticed that the path stopped. But then we noticed there were a few people who were walking across the very rocky terrain. And when I say rocky, I don't mean smooth rocks. I mean jagged rocks of all different sizes. But they were moving in the direction of the glacier. I'm trusting because there was more to be experienced up closer to the glacier. So we felt inspired. We thought, okay, let's do it. And we had our hiking sticks with us to help steady our balance. So we set off. And very soon I began to hear that voice that was saying, is this really worth it? This is kind of challenging and hard. What if I fall? All of that stuff, right? And I've learned over time that when that mind chatter starts, and I'm feeling uneasy and so on and so forth, that it's time for a shift. It's time for an inner shift, and to go below the surface mind and go deeper and listen deeper. And soon I was in tune with the voice of my true self that began to say, well, if other people can do it, I can do it. There's a few other people, but the other people are doing it. They seem to be fine. I can do it. Dan can do it. And then I was reminded, oh, this is really an adventure. I wonder what we're going to discover. So as we're moving along with this expanded experience, I began to notice a beautiful waterfall coming down the side of the mountain. As we were getting closer, we could see more of the waterfall. And I began to look over at this beautiful turquoise lake that had icebergs on it, from the glacier having fallen into the water. So you can see the rocky path there and the glaciers. And I began to see the beauty of the sky and the beauty of the mountain and all of the other things of nature that surrounded me, the amazing beauty of nature in this adventure that Dan and I were sharing together that would be memorable. And I'm able to talk about it now. And all because I refused to give in to the mind chatter of the voice of fear. And instead, I tuned into the voice of love, the voice that called it like it was. It was an adventure, and we were safe. It's not like we were in any way truly endangered. We had things to steady us and so on. So in a very short period, I was able to shift from a mind state that was really a downer into a mind state that was very uplifting. We all have the capacity to do this, and I know many of you do this all the time, particularly those who are well practiced in this teaching. But the point of it is, when the road gets rocky, choose a better feeling thought. Go deeper. Recognize the voice of fear for what it is, and look instead to that voice that uplifts and supports. And it can begin with just simply a better feeling thought. And one way to remember a better feeling thought is to use the words "what if." This is a great way. This is something that helps us get attuned to that higher way of thinking. So example, what if the rocky road I'm experiencing right now is for me instead of against me, right? What if the rocks that are here in front of me, and that whatever your rocks are that you're challenged with, to motivate me to reach higher? In other words, to motivate me to take the meditation class, to change my entire perspective on life, to deepen into the spiritual teachings and spiritual study, therefore to be more attuned to the true self, the authentic self, the God within. What if the rocks on the path are part of the adventure and the discovery of life itself? These what if questions are so powerful in shifting consciousness. If the what ifs are in the direction of something amazing is happening right here and right now. When the road gets rocky, though, sometimes it happens after we engage in spiritual practice. Anybody experience that? You make a commitment to spiritual practice, you start practicing, maybe you're doing it because the road is rocky and you're feeling pretty good for a while. And then all of a sudden, or maybe fairly soon, there's all of this emotion and negative thoughts, and maybe things are starting to fall apart around you. Well, let's get real, my friends. Let's get real. Spiritual practice is designed to not only implant and up-level the circuitry of our neurobiology, which is where the subconscious mind and all that belief structure is housed. It's in the neural pathways that have been conditioned over the years through our life experience. And also the body is wired for survival. And so if we want to thrive, then it means rewiring, and spiritual practice rewires us for joy, peace, and love. It requires, though, again, letting go of all that other stuff. So what happens? We do it, and all the stuff that needs to be released comes to the surface. In the foundations class, I've mentioned this before. In the past, I've demonstrated this phenomena by a glass of water and you start pouring in truth, clear water, and the mud that's in the bottom comes to the surface. And if you keep pouring in the water, eventually the water clears. Well, if you think of your spiritual practice that way, it is so helpful. So you don't want to stop. There's a tendency to say, oh, this is too hard, or this doesn't work, or I have more important things to do. This is a waste of my time to do this spiritual practice. Anybody hear your mind doing that? Well, maybe it's because you don't understand how this works, the continuous pouring in of the clear water to purify the mind, to redesign all of the circuits and the neural pathways in the body-mind. It's really important. I mean, I love that there is research out there done by people like Mark Waldman and Andrew Newberg that demonstrate how all of this happens so that we can understand and we can therefore have a greater conviction in sticking to our prayers and our spiritual practice. And over time, there is a difference. I've been involved in this since 1990. And yeah, things still come up to the surface, but I'm in a much, 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 much better state of mind than I was when I started on this path of spiritual truth, science of mind. So spiritual practice, keeping up, even when it looks rocky, even when it seems to unleash a lot of stuff in us that needs to be let go of. So our spiritual community is here for you. We are here for you, to support you in this process, to help remind you, oh, this is just part of the journey. Keep going. Keep up your spiritual practice. I not only continue to teach these classes to keep myself immersed in the teachings, and also every time I prepare for a Sunday message, it keeps me immersed in the teachings, but I have a regular spiritual practice, and I have several prayer partners, including my daughter, with whom we pray at least once a day and sometimes twice a day. And then my other prayer partners that I have in various places here in the community and beyond the community, because I know that the affirmative prayer that we teach liberates my consciousness, and I am more and more focused on the liberation of human consciousness in my prayers. So, with that in mind, you have two opportunities this week to make a deeper connection with community, a supportive, loving community, and with our teaching. And that is the discovery class today at 2:00. And the other one, and that's free. And the other one is the meditation class. Meditation is more than you think. That is this Tuesday at 6:30. It's brand new curriculum, fresh out of Centers for Spiritual Living, with the latest in teaching techniques and in ways to support you in growing, expanding, and unfolding and being liberated in consciousness. Two opportunities to connect more deeply, to move beyond the same old way of being that's not serving you. And even those of you who have been on this path for a while, I guarantee you continuing to re-immerse yourself in this teaching is supportive for you too. There's always higher ground to reach. Okay, so I want to read to you a beautiful quote by the neuroscientists Andrew Newberg and Mark Waldman that I spoke about. Mark Waldman teaches a class in Holmes Institute as part of ministerial training on neuroscience and consciousness. And they both together wrote a book called How God Changes Your Brain. I love this. It's really their research on meditation and on the power of spiritual community, of being in community with other like-minded people, other people on the path. And this is what they say basically about community. It says, if you enrich your environment with lots of love, communication, and sensory and intellectual stimulation, you strengthen the anterior cingulate, this is in the brain, that connects the frontal cortex with the limbic system, and that's the rational brain with the emotional brain. So you strengthen that connection between them, that circuitry that enhances cognitive skills, that enhances compassion, social awareness, improves memory. I mean, this is all their scientific research, supports more positive emotions, all of these higher states of consciousness. This is what spiritual community, being in community with in an atmosphere of love can do. That's one piece. And so, okay, let's see what they say about meditation. Since meditation stimulates this circuit that connects the limbic system to the frontal lobe, we believe there is also a co-evolution of spirituality and consciousness. They're putting the connection between the two, allowing us to envision a benevolent, interconnecting relationship between the universe, God, and ourselves. They're talking about oneness consciousness, meditation. And we know this, but I love to bring in this scientific evidence that demonstrates what the mystics have taught all the time. For those of you who are more scientifically oriented, and even maybe some of you who aren't, and they go on to say, and whenever we see someone suffering, this connection, that circuitry between the two lobes, allows us to feel empathy and compassion. That's because we feel connected with everyone and we understand that we are all one. That is what meditation and spiritual community, that is a loving spiritual community, can do for you, my friend. And in a relatively short period of time, they timed some of these meditative things and found changes to happen fairly quickly with a regular, what did they have, like a 12-minute daily spiritual practice of meditation. So I'd like to end with this story. To me, this pulls it all together. And this is a real story that took place on June 27th, 2015, in response to the Charleston church shooting. And I know many of you remember that. Well, after that church shooting, which many felt was the white man who went into the Black church and shot people who were in prayer, felt that he was very influenced by that whole Confederate narrative. And so there was a great demand by the public to take down the Confederate flag in South Carolina. And there was actually a law at the time that the Confederate flag and the State House always had to be flying, even when they brought the state flag down at half-mast during funerals or stuff like that. So if you can imagine, the Confederate flag is still flying while they've lowered the state flag in honor of those who had passed. Mm-hmm. And there was public outrage. And there was a young woman at the time, she's still around, age 30, Bree Newsom, who was deeply, deeply troubled by this. And she knew that she needed to give herself some time. So she had a mindfulness practice. She gave herself time to really listen deeply and find out what was hers to do to address this. And she was inspired. She was inspired to show up on June 27th, the 10 days after the shooting had taken place. And she had gear on and climbed up the pole with all these onlookers, climbed up the pole, took the Confederate flag down in the name of Jesus and God, and was, of course, arrested when she got to the bottom, but with the cheers of the crowd that had gathered around her. Well, even though the flag, that Confederate flag went right back up to 45 minutes later, the outrage that took place in the headlines that were international as well as national on the news, the public pressure, I'm sure, was tremendous at the time. The South Carolina House of Representatives voted on July 9th, just 12 days later, to permanently remove the Confederate flag. And soon the charges were dropped against Newsom and her friend Tyson, who had been there helping her. But in the meantime, listen to all the things that happened. Immediately that same day, Newsom's act of civil disobedience caused someone to set up a crowdfunding campaign that raised over $60,000 for her bail. Filmmaker Michael Moore offered to pay her bail and legal fees. State Representative Todd Rutherford offered to represent her in court. And the NAACP compared her actions to those of Rosa Parks and other civil rights activists. This is what can happen when we have a mindfulness practice, a meditation, which is a type of meditation, when we stay connected with that true self, that inner voice, the God presence within. When we make that a part of our lives, then when the road gets rocky, we have something to turn to inspire us to move into action that comes from that place of inspiration. As God incarnate, my friends, you have the same capacity within you to meet any challenge, no matter what it is, with poise, composure, and resilience. It's just simply a matter of cultivating that through spiritual practice and in the love and atmosphere of spiritual community. So I'd like to conclude with this. This Tuesday, the 21st, is International Day of Peace. And I'm enlisting every single one of you to dedicate that day, dedicate your spiritual practice, dedicate whatever it is that you do for your spiritual practice, mindfulness, meditation, prayer, to international peace, to world peace. Are you with me on that? I know I can't see all of you, but if you're with me on that, those of you who are here, put your thumbs up. Thank you. And show that, yeah, I'm with you on this. We are here to be that stand for peace. So I thank you, my friends. I thank you for tuning in with me on this gorgeous day, being with me and with our beloved spiritual community, and remembering why we are here. So important. So I just bless all of you, and I am so grateful. I'm just going, yay, yes, yay, yay for our spiritual community, yay for the spiritual teachings. And now I turn this over to our beloved songstress, Deb.